How I closed a 1 crore 40 lakh a year client. Without my sunglasses, because I don't want to come across as a douche, I'll let you see my eyes so you can connect with me on a human level. 8 months ago, I posted a very similar video. So I closed a 80 lakh a year client and I put the whole video out there for the public to watch. It got around 30,000 views and I think a lot of people really appreciated it. And this time we come back with a bigger contract, a better sales call perhaps. This sales call was so iffy. Like, there were so many moments we messed up where I was looking at the sales call footage again and I was like, how on earth did we even end up closing these guys? I have no idea. If this video doesn't prove to you that you can win in this space, because I feel like this was not the best sales call, nor was it the best outreach, nor was it the best anything. This was recorded in April during the Bangalore Founder House, and it's been 3 months, and I feel like our sales process has improved so much. We've learned so much over these 3 months that I feel like this contract, I don't know how we closed it, but I hope that you can learn from it. So I'll walk you through Vihan, my CEO, on how he exactly found this deal, then the initial outreach email we sent to them, and why it worked, breaking down the outreach email, then they booked a call. I'll show you the entire recording of the call. I'll remove certain parts to keep confidentiality or not make it too boring. And then after the call, I'll show you how the email back and forth happens until they sign on the dotted line. So until they sign the service level agreement and the bunch of negotiations and terms that come with such larger contracts. Since then, obviously, we've closed, more large contracts than this, but I hope that this gives you some hope, because this was such a weird, I don't know how we closed this looking back at it, but let's get into it. Here's how we found them. Hi Vihan, it's been a while from the first time we did this 8 months ago, since we closed the $8,000 a month client. We're back again, this time with a bigger ticket. This time you're included on the sales call. I'm happy about that. Walk us through how you found out about this prospect in the first place and why you decided to reach out to them.
Got it. Let me share my screen. So the way it started was that the host of the Prospect podcast, essentially, he appeared on a podcast I've been listening to for the last 5 or 6 months. And the way I found that podcast was because one of the biggest AI founders, who we've also had on 3 or 4 of the podcasts we work on, actually came on as a guest. And obviously loved that episode, got hooked onto it, and just went back into the archives to see if there's anyone that may be interested in buying what we're selling. So
curious over here. How did you find out this first podcast? Is it because of the guest being on this podcast? And we also had a lot of podcasts with. So while you were searching or researching, found out about this podcast.
Correct. So That was a bit of the point, right? Because the math here is, if they've had the same guests on, meaning they have almost kind of the same goodwill, right? It's a bit of an amateurish logic, but I think somewhere that also qualifies them to have the budget and also makes our lives easier in the long run if they've had the same quality of guests.
Okay.
So went back into the archives and found this guy who turned out to be the prospect that we closed, or at least the CEO of the prospect company that we closed, and really liked the conversation. And as soon as I listened to this, again, similar to last time, I thought this guy should have his own podcast. Did my little hunting, or stalking on X, and looked into his background a bit. Before his current startup, he ran a startup previously, which is worth in the vicinity of like $7 billion. They're on track to hit 300 million in ARR this year. And then essentially found his podcast through his ex, right? And he had someone on that we've been trying to get on for a long time on one of our clients' podcasts, right? So then really liked that conversation. That just piqued my interest a bit more. And by the way, this guest that he had on his podcast is not the most popular person in the world, but he speaks really well, right? So I knew that these guys are not going to be the kind that are looking for 1 million views a month. They're more in the mind share and the networking space, which is where we intend on being as well.
Okay, makes sense. And for someone just starting out, because we found the original podcast that you're mentioning because of the fact that we were looking into a guest, okay, and we were researching a guest, and we accidentally stumbled upon this podcast. What would you recommend a beginner, perhaps, who's not into our niche, right? How would they even start? Would you have any advice for them? Start with prospecting.
Yeah, I think first thing is just like own your niche, right? You in terms of the content you consume, because if you're consuming the right content, you have the right building blocks to work back from. Meaning, if you just eat, live, and breathe that content, you will find some connect in this world. For us, it I think the first thing is understanding the value prop, right? Like for us, it was very clear that we have to reach out to this guy because we understand his niche. And more than niche, we understand what he's looking for. Like I said, he's not in the, like these guys, when I looked at them, I remember thinking, these guys are not in the views business. They're somewhat like McDonald's, right? Everyone thinks McDonald's is in the burgers business, but that's not true. They're really in the real estate business. Similar to that, these guys are not in the views business. They're more in the networking and mindshare business. And that's why they have this podcast. So I think understanding what the prospect you're reaching out to would value the most is most important, right? And the best way to find them would probably be working backwards from the content you consume and finding a common link.
What if we just consume gaming content?
There's no hope for you, man.
Okay, on to the outreach email. Thank you so much to Vihan to show us how he found the prospect in the first place. Now, the outreach email is literally the same as what it was for the 80 lakh a year client. Same template. First name, is clear to me that the substance of the conversations is second to none. What this means, it's basically a clever, roundabout, smart way of saying that, look, what you're talking about in the podcast is great. But my concern, which is the bridge, right? So this is a compliment. Oftentimes compliments are generic, like you will say something like, love your content so much. Like, let's try to not be disingenuous, right? Over here, it is a very simple compliment and it's a smart way of saying it. Then we bridge, like, okay, so that's that. Love your pod, but my concern, the reason I'm writing to you, there's so much else that can be done to help grow the show's audience to improve discoverability. Discoverability is a keyword that we've come across in a lot of our sales calls where our prospects always mention discoverability, like, hey, we need help with discoverability, we need help with distribution, right? So that is why we've mentioned this as a keyword. Now, after that, we build our own credibility. So they know that, they can improve the show's discoverability, but why us? So we tell them we're working with these folks. We mention 5 of our clients and hyperlink case studies to them. After that, we talk about, in case you're wondering, here's what we do. Because a lot of emails cover, cover the dream outcome, which in this case is improving their views, but they don't talk about how. So we tell them exactly what we do. We give them 3 more bullet points on how we'll achieve that dream outcome. And then we have a CTA, which is, let me know if you'd like more info. Thanks. Very simple. It's not telling them, hey, do you want to book a call next week? No, it's simply, let me know if you'd like more info. And info is hyperlinked to our Calendly link. It's very rarely actually used. People don't end up using our Calendly link. Now I scroll down a bit more. Here is the reply. We sent this on the 27th of March. And then the person that we wrote this to replied, thanks for reaching out. I spoke to one of our clients that I mentioned above, who speaks very well of your work, him and our investors, and they are, and the person himself is a limited partner in their fund. So they're very well connected. Okay. One of the clients we mentioned, they would love to learn more. And he's looping in his teammate who co-hosts the podcast and owns its production. Perhaps you can start a conversation with him. This person is busy and busy for 2 weeks, so it'll be a better way to avoid delay. This is a very green signal. They've already spoken to one of our clients who likes us, who we're doing good work for. So it comes in a bit, warmer. And this person has a packed week and he doesn't even want to wait 2 weeks. He wants to start faster, right? So that is why he set up a call with his co-host with us, right? So he added this email thread. Now, if you're wondering like, hey, Subha, but I don't have any clients, how on earth will, this connection thing happen? What we call a client that everyone knows and a client that gives you referrals is called a lighthouse client. I have made a longer than 50-minute video about this, talking about this one client in particular, how we got them from scratch and how we even got results for them. So I'd highly encourage, if you're wondering, how do you get that one client, bro, go watch that video. Okay. So this is the email thread, and then told that he booked us some time for next week using that link I had in the if you'd like more info, and he booked time, and this was it. Moving on to the sales call.
You know, it's funny, we were discussing this with Suba, which was that the real flex is now not to have a virtual background, like have a house which is nice enough. You know what I'll do?
So a very important point is when you are chatting with your boys, so always join like 1-2 minutes before the sales call. In this case, I think we joined on the dot, everyone, right? But the prospect was like a minute or two late. So chat some shit with your boys. This is how you open up, you can't be all stiff on a sales call, and it's fine. Like even if there's a Fireflies or a note taker that is in the call, chat shit, man. Like it's fine.
I'll sell my time, $100 a call.
Like literally, we're chatting shit as the prospect is joining. Look at this. Arthur's like, I'll sell my time, $100 an hour inside of IRW.
Have a house which is nice enough. You know what I'll do in IRW? I'll sell my time, $100 a call.
And then the prospect joins.
That's a good idea.
That's why before I say hi to the prospect, I'm like, that was kind of funny. So I just said, good idea. Hi name.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
What painting is that? Is that like a forest? Black and white?
I'm gonna be honest, it's the first time I've actually looked at it.
One of the things I used to struggle with the most is, what do you say at the very start of the sales call? Like, how do you break the ice? I found few things to be helpful. One, comment on their background if there's anything interesting, right? In this case, the prospect had a black forest in his background. So it was very easy to comment on, because I'm like, why is it a black forest? Like, hey, that's very interesting of a background, right? And for some reason, he didn't have a blurred background either. So it was easy to comment on. Second is, you will see, and a bit more context I want to add here is that this was Vihan's one of his first few sales calls that we were letting him lead. Okay, so the goal was for Vihan to really be on this call and lead it. And I want you to put yourself in Vihan's shoes. Okay, imagine you're Vihan, right? This is probably how you'd perform, and we prepared him beforehand. So let's dive into it.
It is a black and white forest. Yeah.
Nice. Very best.
I'm in Austin right now, Austin, Texas, but I'm based in London normally.
Awesome. I used to be based in London as well.
Oh, cool. I've just been painfully aware of how bad I am at noticing my surroundings as well, which is awesome.
So to break the ice, a few things like comment on the background, ask them where they're from. So is it 12 o'clock for you? Maybe bring up what time it is for them. And if you've ever been to that city, which is why traveling is so helpful, Arthur's lived in London for a few years, so he can really relate with and be like, that's so cool, I used to live there as well. Arthur doing his Arthur's things,
Luckily, we put on some virtual backgrounds for this one, because I'm pretty sure we're all in somewhere that is
hotels across.
So, yeah, pretty much. Advantage of running a remote team.
We're all spread out. I'm in Korea. Suba's gone for the month to Bangalore. So we're literally at opposing ends of the world,
There's all different times for everyone right now as well, which is fun. Well, thank you. Appreciate the flexibility.
Awesome.
So you just want to break the ice a little bit, talk some shit for the first minute. Try to not talk business for the first minute, right? Don't immediately, okay, so should we get started? Like, don't do that in the first minute. Try to make the other person a bit comfortable. Talk about time zones, perhaps just small little things, and you get better and better at this over time. Another thing that I've noticed with me is that my accent always changes to match the person I'm talking to. In Vietnam, I remember like Ishan, my videographer at that time, he pointed out things like, bro, why are you speaking in Vietnamese English now? It just happens with me. So even if I'm talking to a friend who has a very Indian accent, my accent just becomes more Indian. So that's one thing that might help in terms of like chatting with your prospects, if you can just speak more like them.
Well, thanks for jumping on the call, and appreciate obviously.
This is a sign of nervousness, which is a recurring theme, right? And that's totally normal. So try to consciously avoid this. So if you have a look over here, Vihan gets up on his chair before he starts talking. avoid that because that is a very clear sign of nervousness, like fidgeting or doing something like, okay, so don't do that. Just try to be normal.
Thanks for jumping on the call and appreciate, obviously, getting back to us. And we have a connection, which we didn't know of before reaching out to you guys. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us what made you or reach out and book a call.
So this was not good. Reason being, the first thing that you do when you're trying to get into like the business side of things after breaking the ice is you set frame. Setting frame is basically telling them like, hey, this is how this call is going to go. We're going to talk about three things mainly. One is, and I did this later, but this wasn't very well, like the frame wasn't set. So the call can easily go outside of what Vihan just spoke about. And there was a correction here. They didn't reach out to us. We reached out to them. So we kind of messed up in our words here.
Made you or reach out and book a call?
They didn't reach out and book a call. They replied. So the correct word was like, what made you guys reply and things like that. But yeah, nonetheless.
So, I mean, from our point of view, why we wanted to reach out, we're investing a fair amount of time into the podcast. We're doing pretty much a session a week. We're looking at increasing it slightly for certain news style sessions, and we want to effectively make sure we spend the right amount of time on the GTM side of things, making sure people are effectively very aware of what we're doing and happy to follow, happy to subscribe, which is kind of like our main CTA. If they enjoy the content. We don't feel necessarily that we are where we want to be in terms of the growth of the podcast. And so, yeah, we're definitely looking around for some level of support on that. And yeah, you know, when we heard already use you and they were very happy with what you're doing, it made a lot of sense for us to have a chat.
So over here, we invite the prospect to break down his concerns. And then he pointed out that the growth isn't where they want it to be. This is going to be the case whether you're selling podcasting, whether you're selling short form content, or even AI automation, right? There's something that's current for the prospect. And then there is the dream outcome, right? That gap is what you're trying to figure out. So, okay, right now we figured out that the growth of the podcast isn't where they want it to be. They want it to be there. Right now it's here. We're going to sell them on that gap. Okay. The other thing he mentioned was the fact that, you know, we have a connection with a client that we're currently working with, and our client spoke very highly of us. Now you might have a question. Well, Subha, how do you get that first client? I've made a 52-minute video guide on how we got that first client. Literally how we got that particular client that he's talking about over here. So go watch that if you're about to comment, how do I get that first client? I've got that sorted, bro. Don't worry. But yeah, let's go into some higher ticket closing as well. So continuing the video from here.
Have a chat.
You know, they give us a lot of credit, but actually it's their podcast that is
I should not be scratching my shit here. Very bad.
the gold mine. Right? They put in months of research into each episode, and their format is so unconventional that it feels bad. Like we wouldn't take any credits. 99% them. We might be the 1% that helps with distribution in terms of shorts.
We're happy to be there for the ride.
Nice.
So over here, we're sort of decredibilizing ourselves. Like we're telling them, hey, we're not all that. You know, they do most of the work. And by this, you're basically gaining their trust by being honest. A lot of people will try to show off their work or try to, you know, like try to make themselves sound cool. But when you're doing the inverse, it's kind of like reverse selling. And that builds a lot of trust. So trust me on that.
But yeah, I guess to kick things off, let's first talk about why does the podcast in the first place, right? Let's discuss that. What are your goals with the podcast? And we'll introduce ourselves, give you a bit of background on each of us, tell you what we're really good at, what we might not be as good at, and then see if we have some synergy.
Yeah, sounds great. In fact,
This is what I mean by setting frame. I could have done it better. I was looking around at my screen for some reason like a weird dork. That's why I don't know how this prospect closed. But setting frame is basically telling them, hey, tell us about your goals in more detail. We'll tell you about ourselves, and then we'll see if there's a fit or if there's synergy to work together.
what I'll probably do is I'll start a little touch higher and say, what is the goal of, because I feel like it probably then sits into why we're doing the podcast. A big part of that is to make the right people aware of the new way that we're proposing. We want to be strong influencers in this space. Podcast is something that is important to us. It's one of the first things that we created, but I would say the breadth of how we're sharing it isn't where we want it to be today, though.
Gotcha. And can you talk a little bit about who's involved with producing the podcast right now?
So again, I've trimmed a lot of this for client confidentiality. I don't want to reveal too much about their company, of course. But basically, the podcast is very important for them. They want to be influencers. Now, after a client makes or gives you a lot of information, right? Because this actually took 2 to 3 minutes for him to explain. And there were a lot of, like, let's say, buzzwords in the middle as well that you sort of get familiar with, right? Now, after he explained to this, the first thing that Vihan should have done here was mirror. He should have repeated what the client said back to him. So, okay, got it. Thank you so much for sharing, Name. Just to recap, you guys want to be leaders in the space. Community feedback matters a lot to you. So repeat what he said to show them that you were listening. Okay, all that makes sense. Now, could you please tell us a bit about who's involved in the current workflows? I feel like would be a more appropriate way of going about this. And instead over here, we didn't repeat. Vihan directly went for the, okay, who's doing it right now? And that's a bit of an abrupt approach. Not the best sales-wise, but
could you talk a little bit about who's involved with producing the podcast right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So myself and to do the majority. As soon as we record it, we'll typically do a StreamYard. We'll get the files over to a company that it's really a temp company. We've just literally signed another couple of months with them. We're not entirely happy with kind of like the speed or the way that they do it, which is kind of like one of the reasons why we're also looking for someone else for this kind of stuff.
They're not operating at startup speed, are they?
No, they're not. They typically take 5 to 6 days to actually get the first thing turned around, the first episode, or rather the main files turned around, and it's just like a lot of basic kind of errors, and then we go to publish from there. Yeah, from there the GTM pretty much is entirely on our side.
One thing I like.
Arthur with a very good interject. They're not operating at startup speed because the company themselves over here, the client we're talking to, is running a startup, right? At the end of the day, so you gotta try to speak to them in their own language. So they're not operating at startup speed. And this is really good. Like the prospect over here already knows that the company they're working with is a temp company, temp meaning temporary. And over here towards the end, he said, and they're not really helping us with the GTM side of things. When the prospect is talking about their problems, you listen attentively because this is what you need to hammer at for the rest of the call. Over here, you've got the real problem statement. There's not enough distribution. They want to be seen a lot more. There's no help on the GTM side of things, and the current company is not fast enough. Okay, these are the 3 points. You convince them on the 3, you have a sale.
What you mentioned, by the way, was the concept of the strategic versus the tactical side of things, because you're mentioning both having that strategic discussions with the top dogs, and then also having those practical tips that can be shared and implemented. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of why one of the reasons why, for example, My First Million is a really popular podcast. And same thing with, for example, Alex Hormozy, because both of them like dive deep into the tactical, which I feel a lot of people are missing actually. So that's a really interesting concept.
Over here, what Arthur did was basically mirroring plus establishing a bit more of domain expertise. So he mirrors what the prospect said back to him, right? Which is what I told you. And then he added on a bit of like industry knowledge that is specific to the podcasting industry for us, just to prove expertise and, build on to our credibility.
We have thought about whether it is right to have them both on the same or not. Right now, though, we're kind of like leaning into doing it together.
It's interesting because the developer will end up projecting themselves into that kind of almost organization management role, and then the CTO will reminisce and feel like they are at least still staying, relevant by getting that tactical advice, which makes a lot of sense actually.
Exactly, yeah, and then they're still who typically came through the ranks to get to that CTO position. So it's fun for them. It still kind of like plays on their technical mind as well. So I think it does work, but yeah, happy to be corrected on that.
Yeah, over here, Martha is talking about the relationship between CTOs, developers, and that the CTO is probably a developer at one point of time. Now, look, you want to be able to speak their domain knowledge, right? This is what will really help you build credibility. And I know that it's difficult at the start, especially when you don't know what CTO even means, or perhaps you don't know how to speak this language where we're talking about the CTO reminiscing about the days where he was just a developer. It is a bit complex, but that's what you need in order to close someone who's in that space, right? So do try to get a bit technical and do try to match their lingo. Like you saw how much the prospect was nodding his head, right? So yeah, that is Arthur doing his Arthur stuff again.
And when we share some of the clients we've worked with, Suba, you'll remember that we've worked with very intense dev companies actually as well. So that's where our magic comes in. To be honest, just with the kind of companies we work with. Yeah, Suba, you want to? I mean, we've worked with for example, and then we've also worked with.
The reason I passed it back, Arthur is asking me, hey, name a few dev clients, right? Name a few tech clients. And I'm like, I don't remember. Arthur, do you remember? That's sort of what I told him here.
Companies we work with. Yeah, Suba, you want to? I mean, we've worked with, for example, and then we've also worked with, which was a podcast for, what was the company again? Suba, do you remember? It was like a security software.
They were one of our first clients actually.
Yeah.
I did the same fucking thing I commented on Vihan not to do. I got up from my chair, and trust me, that's a sign of like being uneasy, right? Don't do that shit. Pussy shit. And over here, Arthur is like, do you remember the name? I didn't remember the name. And the reason I passed it to Arthur is because I didn't remember it. And he passed it back to me like here we had a bit of a desync in terms of our vibe. Arthur was scratching his head. He was like, fuck, I don't remember that one dev client we used to work with. I don't know their name. And I'm like, I don't know it either, fam.
So what you remember? It was like a security software.
They were one of our first clients actually.
Yeah.
So I'm saying I have no idea how this prospect closed, man. If this shabby performance can get us a 1.4 crore deal, what are you doing?
Yeah. And we also work with, you'll probably know if you're in the cyberspace. So we do all of their animation work. We actually built out, because we built out a whole animation studio. So if you check out their content, there's some banging stuff there we've done for them.
Oh, wicked. Yeah. Is that
with the E?
with the E?
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
So we hear, by being in the game for long, we have so many clients that the prospect has heard of that, it just signals to them that we're in their industry and we're part of their world.
Also sending a link in case you want to check out the animation work, because it is really cool, right? Apart from just having the podcast, this branch is awesome. Yeah. But Vihan, why don't you give a little bit of a background into who we are, why we're doing Atomik, and what our specialty is?
So we actually started as a short form content agency for podcasts. And now since then we've gone end to end as time has passed by. Funnily enough, the first client got lucky there. This is the second. And from there we've built slowly. And most recently we're also working with the likes of, so we're working with the founder, we're working with, and now our goal really is to be as hands-off as possible. So we do everything from guest research and the pre-production front.
So he shouldn't have said our goal is to be as hands-off as possible, because this could be misinterpreted in terms of the fact, like the people on the call, Vihan, Subha and Arthur, they're trying to be as hands-off as possible from the business itself. This could easily be interpreted in a way which is not the best, right? So you want to be careful with how you're phrasing things. And I don't think we should have just gone into naming all of our clients. We should have started with who is Vihan, why is he talking to right now, and then got into the fact that, hey, we have such an awesome roster of clients, which we've already been boasting about. So I don't think this was the best performance from either of us.
All the way to distribution, which is, in my opinion, the real bottleneck for the podcast right now, for you guys. So there's a little bit about us. As for my personal background, I used to work at India's largest private AMC, and it wasn't particularly inspiring. So at the time I met Subha and Arthur, and they said, hey, just come make podcasts for VCs. It'll be so much fun. And since then, we've generated about 400 million views for VCs and tech companies combined. And I'll let Subha and Arthur introduce themselves.
Over here, Vihan said, I'll let Subha and Arthur introduce themselves. So Arthur and I were just looking at each other. Who's going to go first? And that is why it was so awkward, because we're literally looking at each other. We're looking at each other. If you zoom into our faces, we're looking at each other. We're like, who's going to go first? Which is why, and then the prospect is also looking at us like, okay, guys, do you want to speak? Like, what the fuck is this performance, bro? It's fucking funny. It's really funny to look at.
Okay, I'm Subha, and that was really awkward. But
shoot me.
Before founding Atomik Growth was out there, I was working at Educate, which is an education company, all clipping up long-form content into short-form content to drive into product sales. And these were getting posted across all different social media channels. That is why the expertise in short-form content comes in. Merge that with Arthur's technical background, which he'll tell you about, and then we got Atomik Growth.
So interestingly enough, my
body language is a bit off. My eyes keep going everywhere. That's something I keep doing even today. Like, I don't look at one place. I'm probably switching tabs and doing shit like that. Don't do that, Subha, please, in the future. And now I think I still do this, which is a problem.
So interestingly enough, by the way, one thing I would like to clarify, when Vihan said hands off, he meant hands off for the companies we work with. So we're trying to become basically like a force multiplier. Think Green Berets, you drop us in, we multiply your forces, right? That's the idea. In terms of my background, so I co-founded the company with Zuba, and it was from our love of tech and at the same time just absolute addiction with podcasts. And interestingly enough, I am actually the chairperson, so I work more as of a kind of an overarching kind of role, just to make sure that we have that connection between the tech world and the podcasting world. And I actually run a B2B SaaS company. And interestingly enough, my team has just started implementing a lot of AI tools to do actually the development. And we just started doing that recently because our software that we're building is actually quite complex. We have a lot of like edge computing with computer vision. So finally, the AI has gotten to the point where actually we're able to optimize even that code with the AI, and the CTO and the engineers are actually quite excited about that stuff. So that's why I was also excited to jump on this call, actually. So yeah, there's some cool stuff there. And this is also why we have that link with the industry. We went into this industry of VC and tech because we find it personally very interesting, right? It's more than just the revenue, it's also the connections we build and the people we work with.
Yeah.
And still awesome clients we've been working with.
Yes, what would be some of you?
So this was Arthur's little thing. And the reason he went ahead and spoke about a SaaS company in this case is because of the fact that we're selling to a SaaS company, right? So it just, signals like, hey, we understand your world.
You have no questions on the backgrounds there. It would be good, Bihan, if you would take to an end-to-end case, for example, how we produce something from start to finish, or wait, I'll quickly pull that up. And then after that, perhaps we could go over low-hanging fruits that we've noticed and what we would do if we were to get into it. So I'll quickly take you guys through this. Let me know when and if you can see my screen. So
not good by me. I should have my tabs open and I should without any problems, very smoothly just get into the screen share. I don't have to mention about a screen share. It needs to be effortless, frictionless, all of this stuff. But I don't have my tab open for some reason, like a dumbass. So
Comments is one of our recent clients. We started working with them from this episode, and I guess you can see the difference already in terms of thumbnails, right? Thumbnails are the most underrated pieces to make podcasts perform on YouTube. So thumbnails and titles are the first thing we sort of went ahead and started changing up, right? Then what we do is we liaise with the guests to make sure that they're ready for pre-production. If we're recording remotely, we will be sending one of our production teammates to join the call and make sure that every setup is actually good, audio is up to par, or maybe even make some small recommendations on the call before recording itself to ensure that production quality is as good as it can be. Then after that, we make these pre-production docs that are research from other podcasts that the guest has appeared on, right? So for example, if it's been on other podcasts, we go and we look at the hot timestamps and the comments to see what parts were interesting for the audience. And then we compile that into a guest research doc. So for example, this episode, I think 90% of our questions were used. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vihan. Then, do you have any questions on that?
No, sounds great.
I shouldn't have asked over here. I should have just paused. If he had questions, he would interrupt me. But over here, I'm just giving an explanation of exactly what our offering is, right?
Okay. From there, we get to the production and then the distribution bit, right? For distribution, we always create a trailer like this, right? That's implemented at the start of the podcast. So we'll send you a portfolio after the call. You can basically have a little look here with that audio. And this is also posted as a standalone trailer on all social media platforms, such as LinkedIn. Then Satya actually commented on the trailer on LinkedIn, which gave it a huge boost for the host. And that was really amazing for the performance of this episode. And we also have a part of inorganic, where some episodes, we give them just the right amount of boost to try and catch them into the organic algorithms, and we A/B test thumbnails, titles, etc. And we even create a newsletter. So it's all like, we do all we can for distribution, even if it's gray hat or not. So we have a theme page. We have our own network of theme pages, which are basically Instagram pages about a certain niche, right? In this case, business. And we have a network of 4 or 5 of them, and we post shorts or these clips onto those theme pages as well to amplify distribution as much as possible. So that's taking one case.
What kind of impact does that typically have? Do you have numbers on what the click-throughs are from those spaces?
From the theme pages? So
yeah,
we have our combined theme pages have about 1.4 million followers on Instagram. And what we do is we tag the brand account as a collaborator. So the Instagram reel also shows on their feed, right? I think just to give you an example, the episode that Subha was just showing, we got 300,000 views off of Instagram just from these theme pages, right? And what we'll also tell them to do is do 24-hour Instagram story mentions with a link to the full episode.
I think this is where we shine best, when we're talking about our product and we get into like the nitty gritty technical details of it, where we know our shit. We're talking about stuff that we know about, right? Which is why we're like so confident here, so relaxed. This is what we do. We know our work is good and we're just explaining it over here. So yeah.
Right. So these aren't one-time audiences per se, they're returning audiences because they're watching a short and actually going to the episode, right? That's how you get actual conversion. Otherwise, it's just not worth it.
And another thing I would say is these strategies, it's actually really hard to track attribution. This is actually a challenge we had with actually to track attribution from the shorts. Our logic is live rent free in people's minds with good content. So even with the short form, what you're doing is you're effectively buying some of that headspace. I mean, I think over 50 million views in a year just on the short form. So I mean, that must have had some sort of impact.
Yeah.
But whether it helped them grow at the rate they're growing, I don't think that'll be fair for us to claim. Maybe it helped remind their current audience to go back and watch some episodes. Maybe re-engaged people, it stayed top of mind. That's more the way we're thinking about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So when it comes to attribution, like, hey, how much of your work can you attribute to the end result you're getting? Be honest. Like, don't try to sell on bullshit because people can smell bullshit from a mile away. This is the legit answer. And in fact, I would argue that it boosts credibility more than if you were to say, yeah, so 30% of views can be attributed to us. No, like claim. It's super difficult to claim, like super difficult to attribute our efforts to actual views. We've had this challenge with, but we have done this for them. And I believe that must have helped them in some way or the other.
As for the low-hanging fruits, can you hear me all right? Yeah. So
is there anything else on the distribution strategy you guys want to share?
Again, we had a bit of a desync over here, right? Just not good.
No, I think we'll send up these after. That should probably give you a better picture of what we do. So for till now, when I look at the podcast, there's two ways to look at this, right? One is the production. So the low-hanging fruits there, in my opinion, one would be the audio mastering. It's definitely not perfect, right? As for the edit itself, there's minor things which I just don't think it gives a great reputation to because there's a lot of there's too many tiny things that could be fixed. Apart from that, the thumbnails, the titles, they aren't optimized really for visibility or distribution. So if you look at the title right now, I think the titles are too long. We like to keep titles below characters, and we like to keep the text on the thumbnail below 20 characters. And then we also A/B test these. So that's for the production bit. So talk with.
So again, now Vihan went on here for another like few minutes. If you have a look at the time, right, he went on for another 2 minutes talking about low-hanging fruits. I believe he approached this in a very bad manner. I think he should have started with compliments first. Like, hey, so you guys are doing such great work. Like, look, this is the good stuff about you first. We always, whenever critiquing work, we start with the good stuff. Then we jump into a bit of like the, hey, but this is a bit, I really feel like the audio could be improved. Like there are a few semblances. We don't say the audio is bad. We don't say the editing is bad. Don't even use the word bad. Say things like, I think like the audio is something that could easily be improved. There were a few semblances which would take 5 minutes to correct. I feel like a bit more attention to detail is something that, would really help out, elevate the show's overall quality. That's the type of shit you're supposed to say instead of saying the editing is bad. The shots look ugly. Like we can't say that. We've got to make them feel good with everything you say. You can't make them feel bad. And over here, I think we made them feel bad, with the current level of work. Like we can't claim we do so much better work. Incorrect approach.
So this talk with, he was like, hey, we think every podcast should post video. So that's actually a recommendation which could give it a huge boost on platforms like Spotify. Subha?
TLDR here is basically, sorry, we're in the same room here, but TLDR is that we basically try to experiment with all the different levels that we can, especially with the caliber of guests that you guys are getting.
So I basically summarized what Vian said because he mentioned a lot of points. I just said TLDR. TLDR is like too long, don't read. In this case, too long, just to summarize. We try to experiment with as many different levels that we can pull up or down to see if we can get more views. That's basically what I said. And over here, Vihan got awkward, which is why he's like, Subha, Arthur, like, again, relax, be comfortable with silence. And over here, I was waiting for him to mute, before I spoke, which is why I was looking at him at this point, right? I'm like, hey, mute. And I look at him and I raise my eyes and then he mutes.
It's basically sort of in the same room here.
And then I was able to speak. So just another bit of a desync.
But the LDR is that we basically try to experiment with all the different levels that we can, especially with the caliber of guests.
And then one more thing I would add is that in terms of the things we do for distribution, if I take it back, is we also manage we do some ghostwriting for Twitter, LinkedIn. We also distribute across those channels. I think we need to probably start collecting the CEOs of all the different platforms, because we worked with also as well. So all we have left is, we got to get Elon now for X, right? That's the last one. So yeah, that's also one of the things we do in terms of the work.
Arthur building some vibe back.
I guess based on the caliber of the guests that we have on, which of the areas do you feel like we could improve very quickly within the first month or two? And I guess in terms of projecting how you feel this kind of a podcast could reach maybe by end of year, what kind of like numbers would you see as good?
The first thing I would say is it's interesting, you have to do the basics right and do them right all the time and consistently. It's like, I would say almost the same as running a business, maybe with one or two little pieces of sauce that you add on top, right? And, just doing the basics right consistently is already a bit of a mission. So all of the points we mentioned is more or less to get basics right. In terms of where we can get to, I'll let the gents make commitments if they want to, but we're typically very hesitant to make promises because we like to, do what we say, right? And we try to measure ourselves more on inputs than outputs, at least in the short term, until we get the ball rolling, right? And then we have some ideas. The final point I would say is we need to make sure that we don't attract the layperson into the podcast too much, and we actually stay on track with who is the ILP, right? Because at the end of the day, we are not just making an entertainment piece for the sake of entertainment. We're here to, drive top of the funnel, right, for the company. So we need to just make sure that we keep on top of the right viewership. Suba, and I guess what are your current metrics in terms of listeners? I don't know if you mentioned this. I might have been whooped out of it.
So Arthur shouldn't have mentioned I would have been whooped out of it. Like, he wasn't paying attention is what he was saying at the end there. Like, I might have not heard, what are your current metrics? He should be more confident when he's saying stuff like, hey, what are your current metrics, by the way? And he should not say things like, oh, I might have been whooped out of it. Not good. And but overall, well said, because he related a point that the prospect said to us earlier, which is like, hey, we want to get the right type of viewers, and Arthur relayed that back to him in his message of, hey, what type of views can we expect? Arthur's like, it's not just about the views, it's also about the type of viewers we're attracting, which is a very valid point.
The metrics right now, I would say we're getting between.
Interestingly,
I've cut out the metrics that the client told us.
One of the clients we work with is, I'll quickly share the link to their grid podcast. I know we're likely to slightly run over here, but if I share the link with you, you'll see that a lot of podcasts that are featuring guests, right? There's big variables because ultimately there are two things that really make the podcast: the quality of guests and the quality of the conversation. We can try to control and keep consistent the quality of conversation, but ultimately it's also the quality of guests whenever there are guests involved in the show, right? So if you have a look, a few weeks ago, we got MailChimp and 28K views, right? But it does fluctuate a lot. We try to get the hygiene standard up by default, and really we should be looking at a hygiene standard. And then whenever we have like really good guests, obviously we're going to be having hikes.
Yeah.
So the reason I mentioned we're about to run over is because I wanted to know if he has a hard stop or not, right? We're done with the 30 minutes of the call now. So just quick check, like, hey, do you have more time? Which is why I said, I know we're approaching our meeting end, and I continue pitching. Like, I continue talking about, one of our other clients and raising the hygiene standard of podcast views as the key metric, and not only when we have great guests.
Johan, would you like to share some numbers or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So like Subha said, two things really make the podcast, right? It's the guest quality, it's the conversation quality. Now, even when I look at podcasts, some of the guests are incredible, right? And some of them are slightly lesser known. That is obviously going to have an impact on views. And, at the end of the day, we're not magicians. So there are things we can do in terms of the inorganic stuff. Like one thing we've been exploring a lot with inorganics is how do we get views from, say, audiences from, say, Diary of a CEO or people who consume Lex Friedman and get them onto any of the podcasts that we're working on. Right, so that's a bidding strategy with inorganics that we've figured out over time. To be honest, still figuring out. And as for the recent production, the most recent production we had was for Satya Nadella. Now, an episode like that, simply because it's Satya, the way we like to measure our success is quantitative benchmarking based on the other podcasts he's appeared on, right? So if I look at Masters of Scale, hosted by Reid Hoffman, it has 60,000 views. We have 125,000. So, okay, we 2x, but there's probably another podcast, say, for example, PG2, which is Brad Gerstner and Bill Gurley, right? That episode with Satya Nadella had almost 200,000 views. So while these views are relative, it also matters. The subscriber count greatly matters, right? With I think a lot of the fundamentals could be an easy way to get views fast. When I say fundamentals, titles, thumbnails, 50% of the YouTube game, right? Like obviously we don't want to Mr. Beastify it, right? But it is 50% of the YouTube game. And I would say just more distribution. So like you said, the go-to market in terms of just, so how these shorts that you're posting on YouTube, are you posting them on other platforms as well?
We post on YouTube, we post on LinkedIn. The trailer we tend to post as a single kind of like LinkedIn push.
Again, I'm going to cut that out, but Vihan did really well here. Like he related the point back to, hey, I think GTM could be a thing. And he's been complimenting the client and being like, hey, this easy fix could, it's 50% of the game is just title thumbnails, decredibilizing ourselves like, hey, we're not magicians. The two important metrics in podcast growth are quality of guest and quality of conversation. Very well done here. I have no comments. This was great.
Makes sense. We're happy to send you guys like a proper audit if need be, along with our portfolio, etc. on email. But I'm curious because our recommendations will be tailored.
Again, I do the chair thingy like a dumbass. Like I don't need to get up again, right? And then over here, I'm like, hey, I'll send you guys a proper audit because we're past time already. We're 3 minutes beyond time. So and I haven't asked about budget. So that's the next thing we get to.
Budget, right? So do you guys have a sort of like a set budget for the podcast in mind, or anything of that sort?
We haven't thought too much about it. We're spending an amount obviously on current editing already, but we don't have a set budget per se.
And in terms of, what would you guys be open to? Would you guys be open to having us work on the entire stack end to end, or would you want us just working on the distribution piece? And then if it's the end to end stack, when is the current contract running with the current company until?
I would say yes. I think certainly initially we would just say let's get a quote for everything. We'll work out what parts of that we feel like we would want to take on, or we want to kind of like move out of the org. I think nothing that you've kind of like said is making me think we need to hold on to that right now. So I think let's get a quote for it all. I would say the current contract runs out in June. Although we would be open to closing that earlier if we don't have to continue with them all the way through to June if we choose not to.
Very well done by Arthur. So he basically distilled it down into two things. Like, hey, look, as for budget, okay, you don't have a budget in mind. Now, tell us if you are open to us taking the full stack because they have someone current who is doing the production. Although they are not happy with their speed and things, first get confirmation that, hey, would you like us to take the entire stack or only the go-to-market or the distribution of the podcast, right? Now, he's confirmed that he would like to get a quote for everything. Now we can proceed.
Makes sense. And in terms of the current budget you guys are spending on production, what is like the order of magnitude we're talking just for the editing without the distribution?
So that's right now with.
And the way Arthur phrased this was beautiful. He said, what is the amount you're spending on just the editing? And, obviously that comes without the distribution, which is what our work is tied to. So obviously we're going to come higher, right? But we want to get the base fee of what they're spending currently on just production.
Spending $5,000 a month for productions.
2 or 4 episodes? Is that, sorry? That's 4 episodes,
that's for
right?
6.
6 episodes.
Up to 6.
Up to 6 episodes. Okay, makes sense. Okay. And then in terms of, the next steps, what we can do is we can send through like a portfolio of all of our work. You guys can have a look at it internally. I will also send a few more links which I think are not in the portfolio because we've had quite a few really awesome clients join us recently. And then we'll also attach a suggestion, like what we would do if we were, if you were to unleash Atomik, right? What would we do and what would be the budget for that? And then we can touch base potentially. I would suggest next week, same time-ish, and then we can discuss the budgets. And then I don't know if you think it's the right time to loop in whoever else needs to be on the call or not, or that'll be after. I mean, best with that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries. And I think, I'll be back in the UK next week. Okay. So just for scheduling, but yeah, I'm sure we can be flexible. Sounds good.
Which sounds good. Should we put the same time as a placeholder then? And then if things change, we can move things around, worst case. Because I think we've managed to align the planets.
Yep, that works for me.
Excellent, cool. Great. And by the way, I used...
Okay, now, very important thing here. Do not let your prospects go without a second call booked, right? Because we're not the type, we're B2B. We're not the type to send them a Stripe link on the call and get the payment. I don't know, those Instagram reels I see, they're fucking fake or something. Like, what do you mean you're going to send a Stripe link and they'll pay with their card then? Where is the contract? Like, that shit, like, obviously they're not going to read a full 4-page contract and sign it on the call. Don't work like that. Don't be afraid to go async on email, like value yourself as well, right? So we're going to take this asynchronously. Async means like not live. A call is live. An email or a text message is asynchronous. So we will be emailing them our portfolio, some more work, pricing, things like that, right? And we've got the second call booked. I've already sent the invite. And now Arthur is just going to close it off with a bit of some London chit chat because he used to live there.
Excellent, cool. Great. And by the way, I used to live in London for 7 years, actually. I went to King's and Imperial there. And then we
Oh, sweet.
Actually out of there, yeah. Where are you based in London, actually? I'm quite curious.
We're at King's Cross, so
King's Cross, nice.
Yeah, we're just not too far from the station.
Near the Google HQ, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cold Drop Yards.
Yeah,
nice. I used to live just up the road from there in Camden, and we'd walk along the channel to like Cold Drop Yards.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Yeah, Cold Drop's nice. I like Cold Drop. Yeah.
If we started working together, I might ask for an office tour. That's about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just building the vibe, he does his thing. He's great.
We're getting our own. We've just moved office for a few months because our growth is pretty strong right now. But we'll be moving to another office, I think, in July.
Nice.
And we're actually speccing out our own dedicated podcast room in that office. So
nice.
Yeah, we
can help with setting that up as well. So we can actually help setting that up. Cool. Yeah, and we could actually come even in person, I think, because I'll be around there. We've got like contacts in London, which can help you set that up as well. So yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, actually, that's something that's being discussed right now, actually. So yeah, let's chat about that next week as well, and then we can kind of work out if it's a good time to add your thoughts in there as well.
Awesome. I sent you a calendar invite for next week. Tentatively, we can move it around if things change or add anyone. But yeah, we'll follow up with an email, portfolio, and everything else. And yeah, thank you.
Now I confirm that, hey, I've already sent the calendar invite. So do accept it, right? And yeah.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Ciao, ciao.
That was the first sales call. Let's go into the after call, post call communications. Now, what happens after the sales call is done? We send them an email titled Next Steps, Atomik Growth, because we just had a call, right? So, hey Naeem, thanks for the great chat. We'll send over our updated portfolio. And this is right after the call, okay? We don't wait before we email them again, right? So we email them saying we'll send over our updated portfolio because we just said that towards the end of the call, along with some of our recent work and a custom content audit, including specific deliverables and pricing by Friday. We give them a timeline. And then was this Friday? Did we send it on Friday? Yes, we sent it on Friday on time, including a custom content audit. And I will go into this. This is one of our tools for growth and it's been amazing. So sharing a custom audit along with proposed pricing. We've also included our portfolio from October, which features work from these clients. Let us know if you have any questions. Excited to chat on Wednesday, which is the call that we booked before hopping off the first call. So let's have a look at the content audit. A lot of this will be blurred for confidentiality, but I'll break it down. So we have a table of contents, which covers content research, podcast editing. We can have a look. And then we have deliverables and pricing. Going down, we have content research, right? The best podcasts are built on great conversations and quality guests, which are the two metrics we already spoke to him about. Now, they've got the first covered. The missing piece in the jigsaw is to make the conversations more tactical by crafting engaging questions. So read this, and then we link, like we put an image of two of their podcasts over here. Our goal is to conduct CIA level research for our latest installment, for our latest episode with featuring our distribution strategies and guest research drop off rates by 50% and help the episode reach these many views. Now, our audits are basically recommendations like, hey, here's what we change. Here's how we've done it for a previous client. So here's what we do differently. And look, this is what we've already done, right? Now we talk about podcast editing. The podcast inserts, we think this could help. Switching angles to a multi-camera format would be better. And then obviously we tie it back into our own experience, right? The color grading is something we can comment on as well. Adjusting the white balance and mid-tone contrast could help. And we have like a screenshot over here. And then we talk about the intro, trailer, and then we tell them that, look, some of our trailers have been listed in under Forbes. We've had some really high caliber people comment on our trailers as well. Then we talk about audio engineering. We talk about short form content, how we can improve it. We attach a case study that we've had. So an audit is basically a list of recommendations along with how we've implemented it. And now we get to the pricing on the last page. The pricing is around listing out all the deliverables that we have talked about that we will do. And then the price, 5,000 a month flat retainer plus 2,500 per episode for 2 episodes, up to 4 episodes a month. The rate increases by 2,000 from the 4th to the 6th episode, and the minimum contract term is 6 months. So we have all the pricing listed there. Now after this, got back to us in 4 days. Okay, it took him 4 days, and we don't follow up because following up at this point comes off a little bit desperate to me. Okay, so thanks for this audit. A couple of corrections. We'll want to publish weekly and all of that. So we should have, he's correcting us that maybe we're going to have 6 episodes per month, including 2 news episodes. And then you can have a read. So can you propose a package based on that? He's looking at the price and he's already worried that it is way too much. Then it's a lot more than what they're paying right now. But if there's anything we can do to reduce the price for the first month so we can get started, that would be amazing. So he wants to get started. Now it's just the price. So there's a lot that we can do at this point. We ask a few more questions over here, right? Like, because there are 2 types of episodes involved. We're asking for the turnaround times, and on the pricing front, we're asking them like, hey, what budget do you have in mind, right? And we have a call tomorrow, like the same day. So great. He thinks that 48 hours will be sufficient for the turnaround for the 2 special episodes a month. Then they had planned over $10,000 a month for all episodes, which is double of what they're paying now. He thinks he can go over that, but 17,000 for 6 months is a lot more. So he can't do 17,000 basically. So now we had the second call. After the second call, we have attached the SLA and we decided like, okay, look, I understand we are keen to work with you guys. Now you never want to just reduce the price without reducing deliverables or anything else. So what we decided to do is we excluded 1 long form clip per episode and reduce the ad budget, okay? Because we have a baked in ad budget inside of the fixed cost. So we reduced the ad budget, removed a deliverable, and came to some revised pricing. With these, it would be 13.4K for 6 episodes per month. Please let us know if you have any questions before we move forward. And we'll share the SLA, once they have confirmed this. Now he had a few more questions, like what exactly is happening? How much are we reducing in the ad spend? What is the reduction for the news episodes? And he's confirming that 1 deliverable has been removed, right? And what would the full cost be without these reductions, basically? So let's have a look. Again, a bit of back and forth. Feel free to pause and read if you want to learn these comms. But please, at no point in your contract negotiations or price negotiations should you be unprofessional. You have to maintain your own frame, right? A few more back and forth. And then we got the message on the 14th of April. Hey team, I'm happy to say that we'd love to proceed with you and join the onboarding in May. We did have a batch going up at that time. So we were only starting a new batch of clients, new intake batch in May. We're going through the SLA now and may have a couple of red lines. We have an MSA we request you sign. Are you okay? So this is another contract agreement. And now we had so many back and forths on the agreement itself. But after you get the email that they'd love to proceed with us, it's just lawyer work. It's literally just lawyer work. So if you're interested in that, it becomes way more high level, right? I don't think it is relevant to 99% of viewers here. I'm pretty sure there's already been so much drop off in this email back and forth. So if you're interested in looking at what the red lines could be and what that third call was with them, which we had, which was literally just negotiating on small contract terms and maintaining like, hey, you know, we still want to work with each other. If you want that, join IRW's WhatsApp group. I can tell you more about that. This is the point where I would consider it a close, right? But a close is only a close when it has been signed, and this is the close that I can show to you guys. And since then, you know, everything has been great. So that is it. Join IRW's WhatsApp group for more insights on like the higher level stuff agency wise, and otherwise that's it. I'm making enough money from my agency already. I don't really need you to join.